Hello, hello, hello. It's time for another edition of Back Porch Sports. He's Ronnie Sanders. I'm Scott Hamilton. We're going to be with you for the next 60 minutes, chopping up all things Southeastern Conference and only Southeastern Conference. The big topic of the week, well, it's money, Ronnie. Money. The Big Ten saying they're going to allocate $1.37 billion to its membership. $1.37 billion with a B to its membership. That's a pretty hefty chunk of change, but the biggest takeaway I have from it, Ronnie, is it creates a $340 million gap between that conference and the SEC. Lord help us. What's the Southeastern Conference going to do?
Well, I know everybody's broke now, right? It's interesting that's the way that I mean, if you look at the Big Ten, you go from coast to coast. But how many, and we talked about this a little bit before we came on the air, how many premier programs does the Big Ten actually have versus how many premier programs does the SEC actually have? And I'm not sure from a revenue distribution standpoint, I'm not sure over time how much it's going to matter. I mean, I guess we're about to find out. I mean, about TV markets and all those kinds of things. But you've got 9 premier brands in the SEC, and that's not counting Kentucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that Kentucky basketball brand's got value, though. Exactly.
That's what I'm saying. You've got 10 if you count Kentucky.
Okay, so who are the 9 you are counting in the SEC? Let's go through this exercise.
All right, so I've got Alabama, LSU, Auburn, Georgia, Florida, Tennessee, A&M, Texas, and Oklahoma.
And then 9.5 Kentucky.
9.5 Kentucky.
We'll give them 9.5. Okay, and then let's think about this for the Big Ten. You've got Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Southern Cal,
Oregon.
I'm at a loss.
Yeah.
Oregon, would you throw Oregon in? I guess we do, don't we?
I think at this point you do, but I mean historically not. Now you've got. I guess there's a debate to be had about Wisconsin and Nebraska. Maybe. I mean, you tell me.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think those are niches. Honestly, I mean, you consider that they're Midwestern, they're not major markets, which I know the SEC doesn't exactly have its footprint going into major markets the way the Big Ten does. You know, the Big Ten now is basically from New York to Los Angeles. Literally. But still, it's a different culture. I don't put a lot of value into TV markets myself. I don't, because there's so many other things going on that it kind of evens out. They say, oh, well, we're in the 5th biggest TV market in the country. Okay. Well, how many of those eyeballs are actually paying attention to college football? Because they've probably got NBA, they've probably got NFL, they've probably got Major League Baseball, they've probably got hockey, and oh, by the way, they probably have an awful lot of other stuff that's not even sports related that people are paying attention to. So that whole media market thing, I throw it overboard.
Well, I tend to agree with you. I mean, I know that TV executives are certainly concerned about it, but if you look at the eyeballs that tune in to watch, unless something's changed, Birmingham is the highest per capita rating for TV for eyeballs in college football. It doesn't matter who's on; they watch everything. And in the South, I mean, Kirby Smart gave a quote a couple of years ago at the SEC championship game, after the SEC championship game, and actually I've got it here before I got it ready. Kirby Smart indicated the 2024 SEC championship game environment versus Texas felt less electric compared to past SEC championship games. And to me, that hit me because you got Texas participating. And then he said this past year, it's kind of back to normal. So I don't know. I think I guess my point is these deep South schools, when you go to a game at Georgia and you go to a game at Florida and you go to a game at LSU, and I'm not saying that going into a game at Ohio State isn't special. But what I am saying is there are more of those venues in the Southeastern Conference, and it means more. Just like the tagline says, it means more. I mean,
do you have to give the conference a nickel every time you say that?
I know, right?
But no, I agree with you. The only rebuttal I would have for that is it was Texas's first year in the conference, and it's going to feel weird. It's going to feel weird. Now they've been there a couple of years. I've been to a game at Texas. I think we discussed it maybe the last show. It's cool, man. But it does, to your point, it does feel different. It doesn't feel like you're going to Starkville. which I guess that's maybe not really good a comparison. Not a lot of places feel like you're going to Starkville. No disrespect to the good people in Starkville, but you get my point. It's different than going to a Gainesville or even a Lexington, Kentucky. It's just different because of how they operate. And I think it'll take some time to be at a comfort level where we really feel like, maybe that's the question. Do you feel like Texas and Oklahoma are SEC members now? We're going into year 3. Do you feel like they're part of the family?
I feel like Oklahoma is. I think Missouri is a distant cousin. And I think Texas might be too, but they're a little bit uppity. Nobody wants to be around them. So,
the ratings of this show are going all over the place. People in Texas are going to. Well, what about A&M?
They fit. They fit the culture, and they fit. I think they fit right there with. It's an agricultural historically school. So you've got Auburn, you got Mississippi State. I think culturally they fit. Austin's a little bit different place than the rest of the conference, than the rest of the campuses.
I'll throw this out there. Would Auburn or would Texas's culture, is that comparable to, let's say, Alabama on steroids? I'm not talking about actual football. I'm talking about the culture around the game and everything involved around the game. What would be a good way to describe it?
Again, I think Texas is a little bit more uppity. Not that Alabama fans aren't uppity, but
exactly,
because they are. But those are my impressions. What are your thoughts?
I tend to agree. I'm not going to say the good people of Tuscaloosa are uppity or the Alabama fans, but they've earned it. We'll say that. If you want to talk uppity, you could say that about the Ole Miss people with the chandeliers and the tents and all that. But they do carry themselves, the people in Texas, with a little bit of a different air about them. And this wasn't in our show notes. This wasn't in our show prep. We've gone down an entirely different rabbit hole here. But, you get that in Kentucky actually a little bit.
Yeah.
And you get it with, everybody dresses up to go tailgating. I'm like, what? They're planning their tailgate outfits.
Mm-hmm.
My tailgate outfit was a T-shirt and a pair of jorts. It was cargo shorts, I just didn't jibe with me that everybody was preparing their outfits like that. I think eventually we're going to get used to it. Look, do you consider South Carolina part of the SEC?
Yes, barely.
Do you consider Arkansas? You consider Arkansas?
Barely. No, I do. I'm more of an old school. I do actually. I think they've become a part of the conference. South Carolina. Both of them. But South Carolina in particular. There's the atmosphere up there. For a game. It's an SEC atmosphere. And when I say barely, I'm joking. They do feel like part of the conference. Oklahoma feels like part of the conference. They feel like they've always belonged. And Missouri, honestly, Missouri has come along. From a game day standpoint, and they've upgraded facilities, and they've really bought into the SEC culture. Now, is going to a game there the same as going to a game at Georgia? Well, no, and it probably never will be. But that doesn't mean that it's not a great environment.
But we don't want it to be the same. That's what makes the conference so good, because it's different every experience you get to. And I'm going to close out the segment with this thought. First of all, I ask you the Arkansas and South Carolina question to bring up a bigger point. They've been in the league for 34 years.
I know.
And I'm still with you, though. There are times when I'm thinking, well, they're still new to the conference. It's been 34 years.
Yeah.
They've been around for a while. They're Southeastern Conference, but you and I, we're comparable age. During our formative years, there was no South Carolina in the SEC. There was no Arkansas in the SEC. We're watching Arkansas play out all the Texas schools every week. So they've gotten acclimated to it. And then Missouri and A&M, what's it been, 13 years since they joined, I think? 12? Don't make me do the math.
I think it's 13.
I still feel like they're getting used to things. And maybe part of it, Ronnie, is something that's been addressed. The scheduling. We've got that 9th conference game now. The scheduling guarantees that you're going to play everybody within a certain window, and but the new scheduling model guarantees that everybody will play everybody within a certain window. So I think that's going to help us feel more like they're part of the conference, because Georgia and A&M have rarely met. And I think that's been part of the issue. And that's an example, and I'm rambling now, but you get the point I'm trying to make, that there haven't been as many opportunities to integrate these new schools as often as we would like into the SEC. I do find it interesting, though, that you feel like Oklahoma always belonged.
Well, I didn't say they always belong, but I think that just culturally, I mean, watching the games, and I haven't been out there yet, but talking to people, I've been to Texas. I've not been to a game at Oklahoma. But just talking to people, talking to the fans, being around them. I've been around those guys for a long time. I've got several friends that are Oklahoma people. They fit. I've got some Texas friends too, and I'm not sure they're getting there. They're coming around.
Your Texas friends aren't going to be your Texas friends maybe at the end of this episode.
You're probably right.
Taking a few shots at them. To your point, though, I've been to a game at Texas. I've not been to a game at Oklahoma either, but I have engaged Oklahoma fans on a game day a couple of times. Most recently when they came to South Carolina last year. I was so impressed, blown away. I was blown away by how many of them traveled. I'm like, why would they come to Columbia, South Carolina? They were everywhere. Very knowledgeable fans. They felt like SEC fans. And here's the thing, though. They were still also excited because of the newness about it.
Right.
Never been to Columbia. Why would they go to Columbia in the past? They had no reason. But now, and what a lot of them were doing, they were coming early and going to Myrtle Beach or Charleston and then staying and going to the game, or coming to the game and then staying and going to the beach. So they were able to make vacation trips into it. So I thought that was pretty cool. We see that a lot, actually, believe it or not, in South Carolina. But that's another topic for another time. I'm going to put a pin in this, but I do want to circle back to the money question on the other side. And I definitely want to get into the news we got earlier this week from the Association of Football Coaches Association of America. They had 4 things that they voted on. One of them, eliminate conference championship games. That's a big point of contention for a lot of folks. I know you have thoughts. I have thoughts. We're going to chop that up on the other side. He's Ronnie Sanders. I'm Scott Hamilton. This is Back Porch Sports, presented by Duck Club Bourbon.
From the blind to the back porch, some traditions are built to be shared. Duck Club Bourbon, real heritage, no gimmicks. Proud sponsor of Back Porch Sports.
Welcome back. We've got Jon Sumrall, new head coach at the University of Florida, joining us later in the program. He's going to come aboard the Duncan Williams Asset Management Hotline. And I've got some questions for him. One, what are his expectations for the University of Florida this football season? And 2, how much different is it for him to be a head coach in the Power Four, specifically the Southeastern Conference, as opposed to being in the Group of 6? He's been the head coach at Tulane as well as Troy. I got to think his time is much more valuable now, or maybe more at a premium. I don't know exactly how to frame it. But Ronnie Sanders, Scott Hamilton here. When we were talking last segment, we started off by juxtaposing the Big Ten brands versus the SEC brands. Then we went down this rabbit hole about who feels like SEC, who doesn't feel like SEC. But I do want to circle back around to the jumping off point for all that. And it was the news that the Big Ten is going to allocate $1.37 billion to its membership. $1.37 billion, Ronnie. That's $340 million more than what the SEC does. It's obviously a record. I'm fascinated by how they're allocating it. High performers like Ohio State got $91 million. Brennan Mill, rank and file member of the Big Ten, getting around 74 to 76. Even the new members, Washington and Oregon, are getting around $43, $46 million apiece as part of their entry fee to get into the Big Ten. I want your thoughts on this. We're talking about money. I've thrown a lot of numbers at you, but we can't think of it as numbers. We have to think of them as tangible assets. That $340 million difference is a $340 million difference in facilities, $340 million difference in coaching salaries, assistant coaching pool, and all the other revenue streams, or however you want to frame it, that they put towards the student athletes. Am I correct in framing it like that?
Yeah, absolutely.
How do they close it? What do you do to close that?
Expand.
Where do you go then? We're going to go. You got to go get North Carolina.
Yeah. Does that, what, I mean, it adds media markets.
Yeah.
Talk about not fitting. Talk about uppity.
The wine and cheese crowd in the People's Republic of Chapel Hill.
Yeah.
Don't get me started on that. But this drives home something else that you and I have spoke about, though. And we talked about media markets earlier in the program, and I don't put a lot of stock in media markets, but I do put in stock in being able to engage and enthuse, would probably be an appropriate word, an energetic and, energetic is a great word, fan base. And this is something that you do, especially with your work at Auburn Undercover. You're a website, a pay site. People pay to subscribe to your services. And yes. I think that's what you have to be able to do. And if you go to these media markets, you go to a Rutgers, you're in New Jersey, great. You're right there at the Big Apple, but they're not filling out stadiums. UCLA is a prime example. The Rose Bowl, man, is Echo Valley on Saturdays because they do not care about UCLA football. USC's a little bit different animal, so maybe it's not a perfect example.
You're an hour from campus without traffic.
But why do that when you've got the Rams, you got the Chargers, the Dodgers, the Lakers, the Clippers, you got Hollywood, you got all these plays. And so your dollar's at a premium. You're in these college towns in the South, though. I would rather spend my whatever the subscription rate is for one of these premium websites where you're going to get exclusive content and feel connected to my team than taking the time to be involved with a college that I'm not really that I care about, and I'd rather be going to the NFL game.
No doubt. There's 100%. And so there's other value in different ways. I'm figuring out how to monetize that. I mean, figuring out for the colleges how to monetize recruiting. I mean, there are a lot of, I'm sure that there are going to be a lot of creative ways that we'll continue to see to raise money for NIL.
Well, and that's why when you look at these new athletic directors that are coming aboard, I'll use Jeremiah Donati at South Carolina as a prime example. Used to be, and you know this as well as anybody, the athletic director used to be a guy who was promoted from within. He had been a coach of a sport.
Or he was the coach.
Yeah, exactly. And they promote him, they make him the athletic director, or her. But the model now is entirely different. You're getting these people who were in other walks of life. Jeremiah Donati was an agent with Lee Steinberg, super agent. Okay? He was a lawyer. He has a different background. He's able to look at different opportunities to bring in money to create new revenue streams, diverse revenue streams. That's why we see logos on the field now at Williams-Brice Stadium. He said, well, that's ad space. We can make money on that. Why are we not leveraging it? And so they are. Brett Yormark at the Big 12 is the biggest example, the conference commissioner. He didn't come from academia. He was not an athletic director or a school president. He worked for Jay-Z and the NBA. And look at what he's doing with the Big 12. His innovation, willingness to innovate, has been the biggest reason the Big 12 isn't fourth among the Big Four. It's why it's third ahead of the ACC, still behind the Big 10 and SEC, but his willingness to do all these other things has really kept that league afloat. There's
no question. And he's been creative, and, the schools are getting creative. You mentioned Auburn a few minutes ago. Auburn is about to do a $300+ million end zone renovation in the north end zone. But it should pay for itself because premium seating. And the other thing they're doing is they're bringing the campus into Jordan-Hare Stadium, which has never been the case. I mean, you'd use it for, 8 times a year. Now it'll be a multi-use facility. So these schools are getting really, really creative in the things that they're doing, and they're bringing a lot of interesting and creative things to campus. Look what Tennessee's doing. They're creating an entertainment district on campus.
I got beef with that. The hotel they're building is going to obstruct views of the river.
Yeah, I'm not big on that.
No, dude, because that's one of the coolest. Have you ever been to Neyland's Fleet and seen all that on game day?
It's unbelievable.
I love it. Mm-hmm. And that would be a tragedy if this thing actually happens the way it's currently blueprinted. But like you're saying, they're looking for these different revenue streams. And it's kind of funny. I have a friend that owns a minor league baseball team, and they lost their affiliation with the MLB parent club back in 2021. Major League Baseball restructured and contracted its minor league system. And so they had to go to the independent route. Well, they still own the ballpark. They still had to have a team. So they've got the independent ball team. They're still playing baseball, but he has found ways to use that facility now year round. They have MMA fights there. They're having concerts there. They have this thing in December where they fill the stadium up with Christmas trees and lights, and they charge people like $20 to go walk between the Christmas trees. And it's a huge hit, but it helps pay the bill. And that's what they're having. Well, that's what they're having to do all over.
Yeah. And it's great. I mean, using these venues more than 8 times a year should have been happening a long time ago.
Well, there was always the sanctity of it. It's the football stadium. It's the football stadium. Now, we might let soccer go in there and play, but it's the football stadium. We can't have Kenny Chesney or Morgan Wallen going in there and tearing up the grass, and all these hooligans coming in. And part of it,
Lionel Messi's supposed to be playing at Jordan Hare over the summer, so it should be the different. Auburn's got a coach that was born in Russia, raised in New York, graduated from Ohio State, and Lionel Messi's going to be playing in the stadium. It's a different world in South Alabama.
Think about that. I wonder, though, and I'm sorry I haven't done the research for it, and it might be something we touch on next week, though, but we're talking about using the football stadium as a multi-purpose facility year-round, 365 days a year for more than just college football. I'm wondering, though, if the handcuffs were taken off when they started saying you could sell alcohol.
Yes.
You get what I'm saying? Could they have sold alcohol before? It still would have been a campus-operated event, but now that you can, and I'm just thinking out loud, now that you can, it opens the door to have all these other big-time events. George Strait was at Clemson the other night.
I saw that.
Unbelievable. Sold out. I can't wait to hear how much beer they sold, if they sold any.
I bet they sold a bunch.
I guarantee they sold a bunch. By the way, and again, we'll get to the main topic. It might have to wait until after our guest, but we'll get to the main topic, those 4 things that the Coach Association voted on. Excellent article in the state newspaper out of Columbia, South Carolina, just the other day. Alcohol sales at the University of South Carolina athletics down nearly $3 million for this athletic season. That would be from September to right now. $1 million of it, but it's 33% is down. More than $1 million of it has come from women's basketball, or at football. More than $1 million of it from football.
Wow.
Now, here's my thoughts on it. You're going to like this. They only sold 15,000 fewer tickets last year than the year before. Won 9 games the year before. I'm thinking people were leaving and drinking down the street.
Probably.
That's my thought. Well, I mean, if you go into a game and the team's winning, you're going to stick around and you're going to buy more beer. If you go to a game and the team's losing, I'm out.
The Gators changed the rules. Used to, you could leave at halftime, go across the street to the Purple Porpoise, get you something to drink, load up, and then come back across the street and finish the game.
They give out pass-out tickets?
They used to do years ago. Not anymore.
The pass-out ticket, man. That's where it's at. The pass-out tickets. You know, it's funny. West Virginia University, where your buddy Rick Trickett is coaching again. Well, he's up there with Rich Rod. Everybody knows Rich Rod. When they started allowing alcohol sales in the stadium at Morgantown, arrest went down.
Interesting.
Well, here's my thought on it. People would get so liquored up before going in the game that they just lost their absolute minds because they couldn't get any alcohol once they went in. So we're like, oh, we got to get it all now. But once they got inside, they were done for. Now they don't have to rush and be obliterated before they even go through the gate and then get in there and buy a beer or two. I mean, does that make sense to you?
It does. It does. Makes perfect sense. I had a friend in college who would she would fill up Ziploc bags. Yeah, I'm actually going. We're going to a concert with her Saturday night. Matter of fact,
Oh Lord.
but she would fill up Ziploc bags and tuck them into her pants, and then use the belt to. That's how she.
Who was her sponsor? That's a well, that's like the mustard bottle when Kiffin returned to Neyland Stadium in 2021. They were throwing golf balls, and they had, remember the mustard bottle that they found on the field? Nobody was bringing in mustard. Okay, that was full of booze. No telling what kind of East Tennessee hooch was in it, but it was booze.
It was booze. Of course, it was.
I would give anything to have that mustard bottle. I would love to have it right over there. I'd put it on the shelf right over there. He's got the golf ball in his desk drawer.
That's amazing.
It is amazing, and the way he caught it, he was doing the interview, and he doesn't stop talking. He catches the golf ball, puts it in his pocket. How was he not the starting quarterback when he was at Fresno State? That was amazing. The hand-eye coordination. Anyhow, we're chasing rabbits. We got to take a break. Hey, we got Jon Sumrall, new head coach at the University of Florida. He's going to join us on the other side. Got a lot of questions for him. One, what are the expectations for the Gators this year? And two, well, how much more difficult is it, at least time-wise, when it comes to being a coach at the Power 4 level as opposed to the G6, specifically being a coach in the SEC? We'll ask Jon Sumrall when he joins us on the other side. He's Ronnie Sanders. I'm Scott Hamilton. This is Back Porch Sports, presented by Duck Club Bourbon. Welcome back to Back Porch Sports, presented by Duck Club Bourbon. On November 30th, he became the 31st head coach in the history of Florida. This after a successful run both at Troy and at Tulane. He's joining us now on the Duncan Williams Asset Management Hotline. Jon Sumrall, welcome aboard.
Appreciate you having me on, Scott. Hope all is well, man.
All is well with us, sir. And I got to ask you, how's your visor game? Because I know you got the backwards hat going, but if you're going to coach at Florida and you want to have success, you got to wear a visor, brother.
Yeah, Coach Spurrier set that precedent around here. I've got a face made for radio, and I got a head made for hats, not visors is good. But I made sure I hired an offensive coordinator that wears a visor. So Buster Faulkner, OC, I think it's mandatory to be the offensive play caller here and rock a visor. I've got a visor on my other bookcase over here that's a Coach Spurrier themed visor that says GOAT on it. So in honor of Coach, but you got to rock a visor some here and there around here.
Well, it's not so much a head thing, John, as it is a hair thing. See, I've still got mine, so that's why I go the visor route. But we're talking about Coach Spurrier, and you've got a really high-profile job. Let's put it like that. That's putting it mildly. And Coach Spurrier set the standard for all Florida coaches. How are you operating with regards to leaning on the history of Florida when it comes to the coaches? When you're talking about a Steve Spurrier, you're talking about an Urban Meyer, how much conversation have you had with those guys? How active will they be with the program going forward?
Yeah, I had one conversation with Coach Spurrier before it becoming official with me taking the job here. And then his son is on our staff, working with our offense. His son worked with him at South Carolina and was obviously with Coach Leach as well, and has been around and has been here. He was here for a year, and I retained Junior. And so Coach Spurrier lives in the same neighborhood as me. We live in the same neighborhood, so maybe I should say I live in the same neighborhood as him, really. But it's his town, it's his school. But so Coach Spurrier's been great, man. Came to practice, talked to our team, have had several great conversations with him since taking the job. And then same with Coach Meyer. Coach Meyer and I probably had more conversation. We did have more conversation leading up to me making a decision on which job to take. And really, we spoke several times the week before me officially accepting this job, Urban and myself. And he also came and spoke at our coaches clinic, spoke to our team, spoke to our coaching staff. I had Coach Meyer spend about an hour with our coaching staff talking about the standards of what it looks like to be an assistant coach or even the head coach like myself at the University of Florida. And have really, it's been fun for me. You know, I'm a football junkie. I have a great deal of respect for both of those guys and what they did with their whole careers, but more specifically here at the University of Florida and what they were able to accomplish and achieve. And so for me, really, really cool as a younger coach to be able to have both those guys as resources and have an open line of communication with both of them.
What did Coach Spurrier say before you took the job? I mean, I have to think he gave you a laundry list of positives, a laundry list of negatives, and then he put his own personal spin on it all.
Yeah, he said, you know, all that matters is you come here and you win. And he said, these people want to see you score points. He said, you know, I remember him kind of telling me as a joke, he's like, you know, we were really good on offense during his time there, he said. And he said, you know, it got to the point where when they score 35, people would think they played bad on offense. He's like, man, these people want to see explosive offense. And but he talked about the passion. And, you know, for him, it's so unique because he won the Heisman Trophy here and won the first national championship here as a head coach. And so this is his school. You know, it's a unique deal with him having been a player here and winning the Heisman and being a head coach here and winning at the level he won, the number of SEC championships they won. And so he was great. His passion, his level of competitiveness. You know, I think everybody remembers Coach Spurrier's head coaching tenure as maybe his one-liners or sort of his unique off-the-cuff remarks. But I think what people don't really fully understand is how just ultra competitive he is. And so you might not get past like his maybe humor or his fun nature, but you have to remember, like, he was a cutthroat competitor who wanted to kick your butt at all times. And so it didn't matter if it was football or playing golf over at the university golf course right down the road here. The stories about Coach Spurrier's competitiveness, man, they shine through. But he also knew how to keep it light. Like, had Bob Stoops here for practice the same day Coach Spurrier was here, and to hear Bob talk about how much fun Coach Spurrier was to work for, and how when it was 4th and 1, you knew it was 4th and 1. But when it wasn't, man, it was like, hey, let's go to the beach. Let's go play golf. Let's do this. Let's enjoy life. Let's not maybe be so rigid and maybe robotic that we're not enjoying what we're doing.
How much of that are you taking to heart? I mean, I guess the question would be, how are you changing right now as a coach as opposed to how you were at Tulane or how you were at Troy? Or are you still figuring it out, John? I mean, you've only been there for 6 months. I mean, you might be 4 inches shorter and gray-headed after you make it through a full SEC season.
Well, the grays have already started to set in before I came here on the sides. My 4 young kids at home have no problem letting me know that they see more gray each and every day. You know, for me, the job is the job. The work is the work. My job is to serve and develop our players. I've got a sign right behind, can't see it here, but right behind my desk, kind of off in the corner, and it just says coach the team. That's all the sign says. And so it's my reminder every day of, like, my most important job I have is coach our football team and invest in the lives of our players and serve and develop the players. If there are no players, there'd be no coaches. So my job's all about our players. But the biggest difference for me here is just, honestly, it's the resourcing. It's a support staff. You know, I kid around with people all the time. When I was the head coach at Troy, I was also the head nutritionist. I was an assistant equipment manager at times if I needed to be. And if I needed to also be an assistant strength coach, I could be. Like, I had to wear maybe more hats. Here, you know, you've got, and then take a step to Tulane, you got maybe more resourcing, more financial things available to you, and a little bit bigger staff. And then here, a significantly bigger staff, a significantly bigger budget. And so for me, I've got a lot more help. I'm still very hands-on, so I want to know all the details of what we're doing with our program, and I'm involved in every decision we make. There was a wall that was painted in our building a week ago that got painted without me knowing about it in advance, and I kind of lost my mind about it because I'm like, I want to know what's going on in our building, every nook and cranny. And so I'm dialed into everything, but I think probably the biggest difference for me is just the amount of support. I haven't changed who I am. I'm not going to. I don't care if I'm coaching high school football, college football, or pro football. I ain't changing.
We're joined by Florida coach Jon Sumrall. calling BS on his story about being a head nutritionist. You can follow him on X at Coach Jon Sumrall. You're a head nutritionist.
No, we didn't have one. We didn't have one. So me and my strength coach were like the co-head nutritionists. We recruited some girls that were in our like dietitian / nutrition program, which was a degree program at the university on campus to come work in there, but they weren't like full-time employees. They were like interns. And so they helped us make peanut butter jellies and protein shakes and all that stuff. But I was very much involved with like every little part of that realm at Troy. Here I'm still really involved, but we got a guy, Jake Sankel, who worked for the Washington Commanders, who's the nutritionist and a strength coach and an assistant strength coach. He's a dual role guy. So it's an elite operation here where like when I ask him questions, I get responses where I'm like, wow, I'm really fortunate to have a guy like this on our staff. I didn't have anybody like that or even remotely close at Troy.
Well, no, but I mean, you're at the literal home of Gatorade.
Yeah.
I mean, you're cutting edge science right there, Coach. Just a couple more minutes, please. And you kind of touched on the next thing that I wanted to discuss with you. You've gone from being, let's face it, in the group of 6, which has become almost a developmental system for the Power 4. Now you're on the other end of the spectrum. How have things changed for you with regards to building a roster, recruiting guys, going out and competing and putting a team together to compete?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head there. You know, at Tulane and Troy, I would develop a player and you knew, hey, you could feel a guy having a big year, a la Darian Mensah my first year at Tulane. I'm like, well, he's probably like about middle of the season. I'm like, yeah, he's probably gone at the end of the year. Like, I don't have the resources to even be competitive because guys will stay sometimes maybe for less money if they understand the long-term plan and developmental component and the value of what you're creating for them bigger than just short-term dollars and cents. Now, but you're not going to get guys to say, you know, like Darian Mensah, let's say he was making $300,000 or $400,000 or could have made $300,000 or $400,000 if he stayed at Tulane and then Duke offered him $4 million. Well, yeah, I'm patting him on the back and saying, congrats, bud, go in the portal. Like, not even mad about it. Here, we have the resources to be competitive to retain every player when it comes to dollars and cents. Does that mean we're never going to get outbid? No, that happens all the time. Like, we get outbid on recruits every day because while we do have great resourcing, we're not maybe number 1 through 10 in the country in NIL or rev share yet. We want to get there. We're out busting our tail to work on that. And the sooner we do, the easier it'll be to have success. But we're able to be more competitive with retention of our good players and then being able to be more competitive in acquisition to put a roster together. I think the one thing that's changed, I think the talent, the depth of your team has gotten harder and harder and harder to maybe stockpile depth and talent on your roster because guys can transfer and go play immediately. And if they're a backup, maybe at one place they see an opportunity to go be a starter at another, they can move. And so I think that's where you've seen maybe the landscape of college ball shift is I reflect back maybe to like, you know, the Urban Meyer teams, 06, 08 national championship teams, the Coach Saban teams, you know, in that 2010 to 2015 stretch. I remember looking at backups out there and you're like, all right, their backups are going to be high draft picks. Well, nowadays, a lot of those guys, they move before they ever become starters there because they just want to go start somewhere.
And John, my last question, and I saw a clip of you, somebody asked you what a good season was, and you're talking about jumping off a bell tower or something if you weren't bowl eligible. That resonated with me. I love that. But I'm wondering this, though, not on an individual basis as far as Florida, but from a conference-wide basis. There are 5, I might be mistaken, but I think there are 5 new coaches in the league who have never coached in the Southeastern Conference. Pete Golding's never been a head coach at all. What are the expectations for you guys as a group? What do you expect to achieve for the league as a whole, this influx of new talent, guys bringing in new ideas, new ways of going about things?
Yeah, you know, myself and 2 other guys were in the same league together in the American Conference. Silverfield was at Memphis, who's now at Arkansas, and then Golish, who was at South Florida, is now at Auburn. And so got great relationships with those guys and have coached against them and in the same league. You know, I think most of the new guys in the league have great respect and a healthy amount of respect for what we're walking into, because this is a black and blue league, man. It's not for the faint of heart. It's ultra competitive week in, week out. There's no week off. There's no layups. Every week's a 3-point jump shot that's contested, or if you think you're getting a layup, you're getting ready to get a hard foul. And so, I think you have to be prepared mentally for the grind of what it looks like, and you have to be resilient and mentally tough and gritty, and adversity is going to hit. It's not going to. You're not just going to have smooth sailing. There's going to be some real freaking challenges in this league. But, to that point too, like that story I was sharing about my response to what my expectations are, that kind of something I carried over when I took the job at Troy. They'd been 5-7 the year before, and they had won 5 games a year for 3 straight years before I got there. And I told the team on my first team meeting, I said, boys, here's the deal now. We're going to a bowl game this year. And we hadn't been to one in a few years. I said, if we don't, you're going to see, I said the same line, you're going to see me on top of the stadium ready to do something stupid. And I said, no, here's the other deal. I got a wife and 4 kids, so that's going to be your fault. Like, you're going to have to answer for this. And so, like, man, I expect you to freaking bring it, and we're not going to accept being average. And now I'm not really going to do something that stupid, but I want them to understand, like, this is serious. Like, we're competing at a level that it's college football, man. And I want to win. I want our team to win. I want us to have success.
You're the guy that I could talk into jumping over a moving Z28 in a parking lot, maybe after a movie on a Saturday night. I think I could get you to do it.
You may have to talk me into it. I might just do it without even anybody asking me to. So
I'll be like, John, you got this, man. You got that 28-inch vertical, baby.
Yeah, the 28. Yeah, not anymore, even that, probably. But yeah, we just left Disney, and my son gets it on us because we'd ride like one of the roller coasters and be like, let's do it again and again and again. So that's just how I'm wired a little bit.
True story, as I'll let you go. I've never been on a roller coaster, but I've never eaten a s'more either. So he's Jon Sumrall, head football coach, University of Florida. Follow him on X at Coach Jon Sumrall. Coach, want to wish you luck and promise me you won't ghost us when the season starts.
I won't, man. I'm here.
All righty, it's Jon Sumrall joining us on the Duncan Williams Asset Management Hotline. Stick around, more Back Porch Sports coming. Making the final lap, Back Porch Sports, presented by Duck Club Berman. Want to thank Jon Sumrall, head coach, University of Florida, for joining us on the Duncan Williams Asset Management Hotline. My biggest takeaway, Ronnie, high-energy guy. And I think a high-energy guy is exactly what they needed at Florida. No disrespect to Billy Napier. Billy Napier is one of the nicest human beings you will ever encounter. And I still believe he's a really good football coach, but he was just a bad fit for that job. You've got to be the Pied Piper down there. You got to be a guy who's going to be willing to go out, be a high-energy guy, shake a lot of hands, pat a lot of backs, kiss a lot of babies, and have a little swagger to you. You work down there, you know.
It's a different job. They like they like arrogant. They like to throw it around. They like to score points. And you look who's been successful there, really, really successful there. I mean, you look at Spurrier and you look at Urban. They scored a lot of points. They're offensive guys, and it's going to be interesting. I really do. I like John. We talked to him a little bit before the interview, and he seems to really he seems to be in the right place.
Yeah, I was shocked he took that job. Really, I thought that he would either go back to his alma mater at Kentucky, which you got to be wired a special way to have that job, and make no mistake about it, it doesn't have the resources of a Florida, or being an Alabama guy. I mean, he grew up in Alabama. I thought Auburn would have been a nice fit for him, but it has its own challenges. But he went to Florida,
grad, I believe.
So that would have made a lot of sense for him to end up at Florida.
Jobs. He had both jobs on the table, and for what? Look, having grown up in the state of Alabama and having worked at Florida and worked at Auburn, Florida's an easier job than Auburn now, but they're both great jobs, and you can win at both places. But if you can't recruit at Florida, then you of course, I mean, again, you can recruit at Auburn too, but Florida's an easier job because you don't have Alabama in the state, and that's saying nothing against. It's just that's what you're competing against every day.
Yeah, I kind of get it, but you have Miami, Florida State when they're not stepping all over themselves, tripping over their own shoelaces, Central Florida, Georgia, you're having to compete with for recruits. But to your point, the dynamic is totally different. That Auburn, Alabama, Auburn, you lived it. I mean, it's a daily thing. I can't imagine what the head coach and I can't wait to get your thoughts on this. And maybe someday we might have to hit those other questions later, another episode. But Gus Malzahn, I felt, was grossly underrated for what he accomplished. I thought he handled that job pretty darn good considering all the obstacles, internal and external, that he had to deal with. What was your assessment of how Gus did? You dealt with it on a daily basis. What was your assessment?
Gus was groundbreaking in his offense early on. Scored. Look, helped. Auburn doesn't win the national championship without him calling plays in 2010. And Auburn doesn't make the national championship game or win the conference championship without him calling plays in 2013, in all likelihood. But it got stale, and the passing game was elementary at best. And so the longer it went, the more difficult it got. And Mack Brown said, "Look, anytime you're at a place for 10 years, you lose about 10% every year." I think Gus was there for 8 years. It had just gotten to the point where it was just time. Now, if Auburn people, if the board of trustees had known that the athletic director was going to go out and go rogue and hire Brian Harsin, literally, that's what it was. Go rogue and hire Brian Harsin without anybody knowing it, then Gus would have stayed in the job. The plan was to fire Gus Malzahn, hire Kevin Steele the next morning. And, the problem was, the AD got in the way. So,
where else that happened? That happened at Tennessee.
Yes, it did.
That happened at Tennessee when the whole Schiano thing, they could, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was John Curry was the guy who went dark on the school president and was actually meeting with Mike Leach to be the head coach at Tennessee. And they lost their minds. Yeah. And then he came back and they ended up firing. Fulmer ended up working his way into the athletic position. We'll chop that up another time too. But Auburn getting in its own way. I mean, I wonder how Coach Steele would have done there. I think it would have been a big change from Gus Malzahn.
Yeah, I think he would have done pretty well. He understood the culture, understood the people. But Auburn is on the same page for the first time in 30 years. Since Dye was the coach, everybody pulling in the same direction. Now, right now you've had 5 consecutive seasons where you've lost 7 games in every season. So again, if you can go back and change things, I mean, everybody told Gus Malzahn, you need to get a new football facility built. This is in 2013. We don't need it. Well, now you've got one. It cost you $100 million, but it's how many coaches have you cycled through and how much has it cost you in the meantime? Same thing with, Auburn is the second in the conference in buyout money spent last year, behind only, as usual, behind only Texas A&M.
Yeah, A&M's going to be on that list for a little bit thanks to Jimbo. And we're talking money, and this is a perfect way to bring us back around before we end the show to the point of what I tried to make at the very beginning of the show. The Coaches Association voting for things to set the table to expand the college football playoff to 24 teams, and that'll be our topic next week. What does an expanded playoff mean for the Southeastern Conference? But one of the things that it wants to do is do away with conference championship games. Yeah. You've been on the sidelines in a conference championship game. I can't imagine what that environment is like. It breaks my heart to think about the SEC championship going away because I remember talking with Roy Kramer a couple of years ago before he died. God love his heart. Yeah. And he was so daggone proud about creating the SEC championship. And he told me how they thought about it and they came to it. And it ended up being really groundbreaking. And you could make the argument, Ronnie, that it was the biggest thing that ever happened to the Southeastern Conference for multiple reasons. One, it gave it an exclusive TV window. That kind of marketing was unbelievable. Mm-hmm. 2, it gave it a bunch of money because they had that extra game and it was a big time game. But 3, it just enhanced the, I'm trying to think of a good way to put it, the gravitas. That's a fancy word.
And it was
the entire league.
One. It was the first of its kind.
First of its kind. Everybody emulated it. And if they're good enough to have a conference championship, they must be the best.
Yeah. 100%.
What was your first one? You remember?
The first one.
The first one?
Oh, I remember the first one. The first one I attended was 1997, and I was on the sidelines. But then I went and I saw LSU play Tennessee a couple of years later. After it was in 2002, I guess, and sat right behind James Carville.
Well, that was interesting.
Which was interesting. But that's neither here nor there. You know, the SEC championship game would make me sad. I think the better way to do it, and I understand the expanded playoff. I think the better way to do it would be, okay, so if you're playing in the SEC championship game and you're worried about getting beat up and you're worried about playing the extra game, that's completely understandable. So how about this? How about we take the other teams that are set to be in the playoff and have play-in games instead of just a championship? Well, it is, because you're playing the championship game, but then the second and third and fourth and fifth and whoever else is playing to get in, or maybe the bottom tier of the conference is playing to get in. I don't know, but not the bottom tier.
I see what you're saying.
But the 4, 3, 4, 5, 6.
But what if it's a down year though? And let's say that number 1's guaranteed to get in, number 2 guaranteed to get in, but then you're wanting to have 3 play 6, 4 play 5 for 2 more spots?
I'm wanting to have a national play-in. So I want to have a national play-in. So in other words, you got the Big Ten championship game, and you've got the SEC championship game, and you got ACC and Big 12, even though
right.
And then the rest of those teams are either they're play-in games. It's a playoff.
Right. So you would have, so you'd have 2 play 4 or 2 play 5, 3 play 4.
Sure.
And have 2 games each day and make it an event.
Yes.
Sell a lot of tickets. And people would watch. And that would make the network executives very happy. I'm going to have to let this one marinate for a minute, because you might have something to it. Have a play-in weekend, a play-in day, instead of just one championship. It'd be a big event. You'd have fans from all over. It'd be kind of like the basketball tournament in a lot of ways. Yeah.
Have a play-in weekend.
Okay. And then first place is already in. They're going to get that bye. Mm-hmm. The winner of the 2. Okay. But I don't think you have 2 play 4. I think you have 2 play 3. Because they're probably going to get in already. And the winner gets a home game. Another one has to go on the road in the first round. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And then 4 and 5 for the last spot.
Yeah, you could set it up any number of ways. I mean, you could set it up, like I say, as a national playoff, where you've got Big Ten and SEC schools playing each other, and I mean, there's a national play-in.
The only rub in all this is it would require automatic bids.
It would,
and absolutely. That's already been a point of contention, because I think the Big Ten model has the SEC and the Big Ten each getting 4 automatic bids, which that's in a. I'm okay with it because it's going to happen anyhow, but Big 12 and ACC might not feel the same way.
So I'm sure they don't, but try not having, how many teams how many games did Duke lose last year?
No, you're right. Absolutely. But no team, they lost 2. No 3-loss team has ever made the playoff, and no 4-loss team has ever made the playoff. And I think we're going to see it in the very near future, and it's going to be SEC teams. Because of that 9th game.
I agree 100%. And the expanded schedule, Coach Saban made a good point. The 9-game schedule, it does give you flexibility. It gives you opportunities for every if a kid comes to school and stays 4 years, he ought to be able to play on every campus. And that's what the 9-game schedule allows you to do.
Yeah, but that's pie in the sky. If this kid come on, how can you imagine a kid now playing all 4 years at one school? It's just not good. But here's the funny stat, and we'll bring it up about Coach Saban. I want to say every kid that played 4 years for him won at least one national title.
Pretty amazing.
Just throwing that out there to wrap up the show. Hey, want to thank Jon Sumrall, head coach of the University of Florida, for joining us on the Duncan Williams Asset Management Hotline. We've got Will Stein, head coach of University of Kentucky, joining us next episode, going to get his estimation of Kentucky heading into the 2026 season and also find out how he's adjusting to life as a head coach. Remember, he was the offensive coordinator at Oregon. Now he's back in his home state at Kentucky, played at Louisville, but he grew up a Kentucky fan. How's it working out for him so far? We'll ask Will Stein, head coach, University of Kentucky. He's Ronnie Sanders. I'm Scott Hamilton. Thanks for stopping by Back Porch Sports.